Albert.Jacka, VCMC in Amp Bar, was an Australian recipient of the Victoria Cross, the highest decoration for gallantry in the face of the enemy that can be awarded to members of the British and Commonwealth Armed Forces. Jacka was the first Australian to be decorated with the VC during the First World War, receiving the medal for his actions during the Gallipoli Campaign. He later served on the Western Front and was twice further decorated for his bravery. Upon the conclusion of the war, Jacka returned to Australia and entered business, establishing the electrical goods importing and exporting business Roxburgh, Jacka and Amp Co. Pty Limited. He was later elected to the local council, where he became the mayor of the city of St Kilda. Jacka never fully recovered from the multiple wounds he sustained during his war service, and died at the age of 39. Early life. Albert.Jacka was born on a dairy farm near Winchelsea, Victoria on 10 January 1893, the fourth of 7 children to Nathaniel Jacka and his English-born wife Elizabeth. His family moved to Wedderburn, Victoria when he was 5 years old, where he attended the local school before working with his father as a haulage contractor. He was working for the Victorian State Forest Department when the First World War broke out. First World War. Enlistment and training. Jacka enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on 18 September 1914, with the rank of private. He was assigned to the 14th Battalion, 4th Brigade, 1st Division and finished his training at Broadmeadows Camp. After Turkey became a German ally, the 1st Division was sent to Egypt to defend the Suez Canal. Jacka and his battalion arrived at Alexandria on the 31st of January 1915. During 10 weeks of training south of Cairo, the 4th Brigade was merged with 2 New Zealand brigades and merged with the 1st Light Horse Brigade to form the New Zealand and Australian Division under Major General Alexander Godley. Gallipoli.Jacka fought in the Gallipoli Campaign that started on 25 April 1915, when his new division landed at Anzac Cove on the 26th in the Dardanelles, fighting against Turkish defenders on a narrow beach. The NZ and AMP held position. A series of trenches which became known as Courtney's Post was where Jacka won the Victoria Cross. On 19 May 1915, the Turks launched an assault against the Anzac line, capturing a section of the trench at Courtney's Post, one end of which was guarded by Jacka. For several minutes he fired warning shots into the trench wall until reinforcements arrived, after which he attempted to enter the trench with 3 others. All but Jacka were either wounded or pinned. It was then decided that while a feint attack was made from the same end, Jacka would attack from the rear. The party then proceeded to engage the Turks with rifle fire, throwing in 2 bombs as Jacka skirted around to attack from the flank. He climbed out onto no man's land, entering the trench via the parapet. In the resulting conflict, Jacka shot 5 Turkish soldiers and bayoneted 2 others, forcing the remainder to flee the trench. He then held the trench alone for the remainder of the night. Jacka's platoon commander, Lieutenant Crabb, informed him the following morning that he would be recommended for his bravery. His Majesty the King has been graciously pleased to award the Victoria Cross to the undermentioned officers and non-commissioned officers. Number 465 Lance Corporal Albert.Jacka, 14th Battalion, Australian Imperial Forces, for most conspicuous bravery on the night of the 19th to 20th of May 1915 at Courtney's Post, Gallipoli Peninsula. Lance Corporal Jacka, while holding a portion of our trench with 4 other men, was heavily attacked. When all except himself were killed or wounded, the trench was rushed and occupied by 7 Turks. Lance Corporal Jacka at once most gallantly attacked them single-handed, and killed the whole party, 5 by rifle fire and 2 with the bayonet. Following his VC action, Jacka instantly became a national hero. He received the £500 and gold watch that the prominent Melbourne business and sporting identity, John Wren, had promised to the first Australian of the war to receive the VC. His image was used on recruiting posters and magazine covers, and he received rapid promotions, first to corporal on the 28th of August, to sergeant 2 weeks later on the 12th of September, and then to company sergeant major on the 14th of November. He became company sergeant major of C Company, and saw much fighting at Gallipoli, where, during August at Shamrock Bear Hill 971 and Hill 60, his battalion took part in an Allied offensive aimed at trying to break the deadlock around the beachhead. After 9 months of fighting and 26,111 Australian casualties, the Allied forces began to evacuate the peninsula in December 1915, after which Jacka's battalion was withdrawn to Egypt. In Egypt, he passed through officer training school with high marks, and on the 29th of April 1916 was commissioned as a second lieutenant. During this time, the AIF expanded and was reorganized. The 14th Battalion was split and provided experienced soldiers for the 46th Battalion, and the 4th Brigade was combined with the 12th and 13th Brigades to form the 4th Australian Division. Western Front. The division was sent to France and the Western Front in June 1916, where Jacka and his unit were assigned to the Allied trenches near Armentières, participating in several raids against the German trench. Following the heavy casualties on the Somme, the 14th Battalion was transferred to the Pozières sector of the Somme offensive. Jacka's division, on the 23rd of July 1916, was involved in the attack of Pozières planned by Major General Harold Bridgewood Walker. The Australian division suffered 5,285 casualties after 3 days of fighting. The Australian force captured Pozières, but the fight was so bloody that the Australians could only identify their trenches by the bodies of their comrades showing the red and white shoulder patches. On the morning of the 7th of August 1916, after a night of heavy shelling, the Germans began to overrun a portion of the line which included Jacka's dugout. Jacka had just completed a reconnaissance and had gone to his dugout when 2 Germans appeared at its entrance and rolled a bomb down the doorway, killing 2 of his men. Emerging from the dugout, Jacka came upon a large number of Germans rounding up some 40 Australians as prisoners. Only 7 men from his platoon he had recovered from the blast. Rallying these few, he charged at the enemy. Heavy hand-to-hand fighting ensued, as the Australian prisoners turned on their captors. Every member of the platoon was wounded, including Jacka, who was wounded 7 times, including an injury from a bullet that passed through his body under his right shoulder, and 2 head wounds. 50 Germans were captured and the line was retaken. Jacka was personally credited with killing between 12 and 20 Germans during the engagement. Jacka was awarded the Military Cross for his actions at Pozières, although he was originally recommended for the Distinguished Service Order. Many present at the time, as well as many historians since, have voiced the opinion that Jacka deserved a second Victoria Cross for the Pozières action, one of only 2 bars to the Victoria Cross awarded during the war was earned the following day by Captain Noel Godfrey Chavis of the Royal Army Medical Corps. Chavis subsequently died of wounds sustained during this second VC action. The other bat to the VC was earned by Arthur Martin Leake during the period the 29th of October to the 8th of November 1914 near Zonnebaker, Belgique, when, according to his award citation, Martin Leake showed most conspicuous bravery and devotion to duty in rescuing, while exposed to constant fire, a large number of of the wounded who were lying close to the enemy's trenches. Martin Leake was the first of only 3 men to be awarded a bat to his VC. Although traditionally the reason Jacka was not awarded a bat to his VC has been ascribed to British snobbery towards a rough colonial, this view has been challenged. Gordon Corrigan, in Blood, Mud and Poppycock, points out that it was Jacka's Australian superiors who chose not to recommend him for the award, and he argues that this may have been due to the fact that the Germans easily infiltrated Jacka's platoon position in broad daylight without being challenged. The sentries were most likely asleep or absent, and Jacka should have ensured that they were not. As such, it may have been perceived that while Jacka should be commended for his robust action in responding to the situation, he also bore a responsibility for allowing it to happen in the first place. After the incident, Jacka was evacuated to England, where he was promoted to lieutenant on the 18th of August 1916, but was falsely reported dead on the 8th of September. He attended an investiture ceremony at Windsor Castle on the 29th of September, receiving his Victoria Cross from King George V, before rejoining his unit in November. Promoted to captain on the 15th of March 1917, he was appointed the 14th Battalion's intelligence officer. By early 1917, the Germans had retired to the Hindenburg Line, and on the 8th of April Jacka led a night reconnaissance party into no man's land near Bullecourt to inspect enemy defenses before an Allied attack against the new German line. He penetrated the wire at 2 places, reported back, then went out again to supervise the laying of tapes to guide the assault parties. In the process, he single-handedly captured a 2-man German patrol. He was awarded a bat to his military cross for this action. Later, Jacka was given command of D Company, 14th Battalion, and in June led his men through the battle for Messines Ridge. During their advance, the company overran several machine gun posts and captured a German field gun. Jacka's actions went unrecognized. On the 8th of July, he was wounded by a sniper near Ploegsteert Wood, resulting in nearly 2 months hospitalization. Returning to the front, he led the 14th Battalion on the 26th of September in an attack against German pillboxes during the Battle of Polygon Wood. Jacka was recommended for the Distinguished Service Order a second time for this feat, but again it was not granted. In May 1918, Jacka was finally removed from the conflict when outside the village of Villers-Bretonneux, he was badly gassed and a missile passed through his trachea. He was evacuated to No. 20 Casualty Clearing Station at Vigny-Court, where it was thought that he would not recover. When he did, he was sent to Britain for 2 operations and a long recuperative period. He returned to Australia on the 6th of September 1919, and his AIF appointment ended on the 10th of January 1920, when he returned to Melbourne to a hero's welcome. Later life. After the war, Jacka, R.O. Roxburgh and E.J.L. Edmonds, both former members of the 14th Battalion, established the electrical goods importing and exporting business Roxburgh, Jacka and Amp Co. Pty Limited. The business was heavily financed by John Wren, but collapsed with the Great Depression in 1931. On the 17th of January 1921, at St. Mary's Catholic Church, St. Kilda, Jacka married Frances Veronica Carey, a typist from his office. The pair settled in St. Kilda, and later adopted a daughter, Betty. In September 1929, he was elected to the council of the city of St. Kilda, becoming mayor the following year. Much of his civic work was characterized by his strong interest in assisting the unemployed, defending evictees and proposing public works for the sustenance workers employed on public works by the government as a relief measure. On the 14th of December 1931, Jacka collapsed after after a council meeting and was admitted to Caulfield Military Hospital. On 17 January 1932, 1 week after his 39th birthday, he died from chronic nephritis. He was buried at St Kilda Cemetery, with 8 other Victoria Cross recipients acting as pallbearers and an estimated 6,000 witnesses to the burial as his body passed en route to the cemetery. Albert Jacka's Victoria Cross is displayed at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra, and a commemorative service is held every 17th of January in St Kilda to honour Jacka. Originally organised by former members of the 14th Battalion, it is now held by the local council. Memorials. Albert Jacka Grave. Every year in January, a memorial service at the grave is organised by the St Kilda Council. Jacka Park, Wedderburn, St Kilda is named in his honour, and the gates inscribed with 1914-18 dedicated to the memory of CPT. Albert Jacka VCM, C and AMP bar plaque in RSL Club, Ackland Street, St Kilda inscribed in memory of Captain Albert Jacka V. CM, C and bar 1893-1932, served in the 4th Brigade, 14th Battalion, Jacka's Mob, Australian Imperial Forces 1914-1920. Inscription of name on Victoria Cross Memorial in Alfred Square, St Kilda, along with other Victoria Cross recipients from St Kilda. The suburb of Jacka, located in Canberra, Australia's national capital, is named in his honour. Jacka Boulevard, St Kilda, was named in his honour.